We just can't afford it this year, honey. Money's too tight for Thanksgiving. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, heavy with what sounded like genuine disappointment. I sat in my Denver apartment, staring out at the early November snow, feeling my heart sink. My name is Brianna Fields, and I'm 30 years old. For the past 8 years, I've worked as a senior project manager at Gravora Group, a mid-sized construction company here in Colorado. I make decent money, around $75,000 a year, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. The one who saves money, pays bills on time, and plans ahead. My parents, Robert and Janet Fields, live back in Phoenix with my younger sister Vanessa, who's 26 and works as a social media coordinator for some startup. Mom, you know I could help out, I offered immediately. I've been saving up anyway. I could fly down and cover the groceries, maybe even rent a nice place if Dad's house isn't big enough for everyone. There was a pause that felt too long. Oh, sweetheart, that's so generous, but we've already told everyone to make other plans. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria are doing something small with just their kids. Your cousins Tyler and Madison already booked that cabin they go to every year. It's better this way. Less stress for everybody. Something about her tone felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. My family had been through some rough patches financially over the years. Dad had been laid off from his warehouse job 6 months ago, and Mom's part-time work at the local pharmacy wasn't bringing in much. It made sense that they'd want to keep things simple. Are you sure? I pressed. Because honestly, Mom, I've been looking forward to seeing everyone. It's been since last Christmas. I know, baby, I know. But maybe we can plan something for New Year's instead, when things settle down a bit. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment feeling hollow. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. The warmth of family gathered around the table, the laughter echoing through the house, the sense of belonging that came with being surrounded by people who knew you inside and out. Now I was facing the prospect of spending it alone, eating a frozen dinner and watching football by myself. I called my sister Vanessa next, hoping maybe she'd want to do something together, just the two of us. Oh my God, Brie. I'm so bummed about Thanksgiving, she said, her voice carrying that same theatrical disappointment I'd heard from Mom. But honestly, I'm kind of relieved too. I've been so swamped with work lately, and Trevor's been wanting to take me somewhere nice for the weekend. Trevor was her boyfriend of 2 years, some guy who worked in tech and always seemed to have money for expensive trips and fancy restaurants. Maybe we could do something simple, I suggested. Just grab dinner somewhere, nothing fancy. I wish I could, but we already made plans. Rain check? There was something about the way she said it, too quick, too eager to get off the phone, that left me feeling even more isolated than before. Growing up, our family had always been close, or at least I thought we were. My parents weren't wealthy, but they made sure we felt loved and included. Dad worked long hours at the warehouse, and Mom juggled part-time jobs to make ends meet, but somehow they always managed to pull together enough for holidays and birthdays. Vanessa and I shared a room until I left for college, and despite our 5-year age gap, we got along well most of the time. But looking back now, I could see the patterns I'd been blind to for years. I was always the one who remembered birthdays first, who called to check in, who offered to help when someone needed it. When Dad got laid off from his previous job 3 years ago, I'd sent home $500 without being asked. When Vanessa's car broke down last year, I'd helped her with the down payment for a new one. When Mom needed dental work that insurance wouldn't cover, I'd quietly transferred money to her account. I told myself it was what family did for each other. I was single, had a stable job, and didn't have kids or a mortgage weighing me down. It felt natural to be the one who could step up when others couldn't. But there were little things that had started to bother me over the years. The way conversation would shift whenever I brought up my job, or mentioned getting a promotion. How Vanessa would post photos of expensive dinners and weekend trips on social media, but still ask me to cover her phone bill because she was between paychecks. The way my parents would praise her for landing a new client at work, but barely acknowledge when I got recognized at my company, or took on additional responsibilities. I'd always assumed it was because my life seemed more stable, more predictable. Vanessa was the creative one, the one with the exciting job and the Instagram-worthy lifestyle. I was just reliable old Brianna, doing my boring construction job and living my quiet life in Colorado. Still, the phone call from Mom had caught me off guard. In all the years of family financial struggles, they'd never completely canceled a holiday before. There had been smaller gatherings, potluck-style meals, and creative gift exchanges, but never just nothing. That afternoon, I found myself scrolling through old family photos on my phone. Pictures from last Thanksgiving, where we'd all crowded around Dad's table, arguing over football games and competing for the last piece of pie. Mom had made her famous stuffing, and Uncle Pete had told the same corny jokes he'd been telling for 20 years. Vanessa had been on her phone half the time, but she'd still been there, still been part of it. The silence in my apartment felt heavier as evening approached. I'd gotten so used to having somewhere to go, someone to see, that I hadn't realized how empty my social life had become outside of family. Most of my college friends had moved away or gotten married and started families of their own. My work colleagues were friendly enough, but we didn't really socialize outside the office. For the first time in years, I was truly going to be alone on Thanksgiving. Thursday arrived gray and cold. I'd made a half-hearted attempt to create some holiday spirit for myself. I bought a small turkey breast from the grocery store and picked up ingredients for basic sides. But as I stood in my kitchen that morning, looking at the sad little meal I was preparing for one, the whole thing felt pathetic. I tried calling a few friends from college, but everyone was busy with their own family celebrations. My coworker Jessica had invited me to join her family's dinner, but something about being the charity case at someone else's table made me decline. I told myself I preferred to be alone anyway. The day dragged on endlessly. I cooked my small meal, watched the parade on television, and tried to lose myself in a book. But every few minutes, my mind would drift back to wondering what my family was doing. Were they really just staying home, having a quiet day? Were Mom and Dad watching football while Vanessa caught up on work? Around 6 p.m., I was picking at my leftover turkey and scrolling mindlessly through social media when something stopped me cold. Vanessa had just started a live video on Instagram, and the preview image showed her laughing, a cocktail in her hand, palm trees visible in the background. My heart started pounding as I tapped to join the live stream. There was my sister, radiant in a flowing sundress, standing on what looked like an elegant rooftop terrace overlooking the ocean. Behind her, I could see other people mingling, people who looked distinctly familiar. "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone," Vanessa was saying to her followers, her voice bright and cheerful. "I'm so grateful to be here in beautiful Miami with my amazing family." She turned the camera, and my world tilted. There was my Uncle Pete, raising a glass of wine toward the phone. There was Aunt Gloria, laughing at something someone had said off camera. My cousins Tyler and Madison were lounging by what appeared to be an infinity pool, drinks in hand. And then the camera panned further, and I saw them. My parents. My mother, wearing a flowing white blouse I'd never seen before, chatting animatedly with someone I didn't recognize. My father, relaxed in expensive-looking resort wear, a beer in his hand, and the biggest smile I'd seen on his face in months. "We're having such an incredible time at this private resort," Vanessa continued, turning the camera back to herself. "The food has been absolutely amazing, and the weather is perfect. I feel so lucky to have a family that knows how to celebrate in style." I watched in stunned silence as she showed off the elaborate buffet spread, the professional bartender making custom cocktails, the live band playing in the background. This wasn't some simple family gathering. This was an expensive, coordinated vacation that would have cost thousands of dollars. My phone felt heavy in my hands as the pieces fell into place. They hadn't canceled Thanksgiving because they were broke. They'd canceled it because they didn't want me there. While I'd been sitting alone in my apartment, eating reheated turkey and feeling sorry for myself, my entire family had been living it up at some luxury resort in Miami. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath and making my chest tight with hurt and anger. I stared at my phone screen until the live stream ended, my mind reeling with disbelief. The cheerful sounds of Vanessa's voice and the laughter of my family echoed in my ears, but now they felt like cruel mockery. I set the phone down with shaking hands and tried to process what I'd just witnessed. They had lied to me, not just a small white lie or an omission. They had deliberately, carefully constructed an elaborate deception to exclude me from what was clearly a planned family vacation. The "we're too broke for Thanksgiving" story had been complete fiction, designed to keep me away while they celebrated without me. But why? That was the question that tormented me as I sat in my suddenly suffocating apartment. What had I done to deserve this? I'd always been there for them, always ready to help financially or emotionally whenever they needed it. I'd never been demanding or needy. I'd never caused family drama or created problems. I replayed every conversation from the past few weeks, looking for clues I might have missed. Mom's tone had seemed genuine when she called, but now I could hear the practiced quality in her voice, the way she'd rushed to shut down my offers to help. Vanessa's quick dismissal of my suggestion to spend the holiday together suddenly made perfect sense. She'd already known about Miami. The worst part was imagining them planning this trip. They would have had to coordinate flights, book accommodations, arrange time off work. This wasn't a last-minute decision. It was something they'd been organizing for weeks, maybe months. And through all of that planning, through all those family group chats and phone calls I clearly hadn't been included in, not one of them had considered inviting me. I felt like I was seeing my family clearly for the first time, and the picture was uglier than I'd ever imagined. All those years of feeling like the responsible older sister, the one who could be counted on, the one who held things together. Maybe what I really was to them was the convenient bank account. The boring relative they tolerated because I was useful when they needed money, but who could be easily discarded when they wanted to have fun. My phone buzzed with notifications as Vanessa's followers liked and commented on her posts from the trip. I could see the photos now. Professional quality shots of the resort, group pictures of everyone looking happy and relaxed, artistic food photos of elaborate meals. The kind of vacation that cost serious money, not the tight budget my mother had described. I thought about calling them, confronting them directly about the lie. But what would be the point? They'd clearly made their choice about whether I belonged in their lives, and forcing an awkward conversation wouldn't change that fundamental rejection. Instead, I found myself scrolling through my banking app, looking at all the transfers I'd made to family members over the years. $500 here for Dad's job loss, $300 there for Mom's medical bills, $600 for Vanessa's car down payment, $400 for Uncle Pete's kids' school expenses, $200 for Aunt Gloria's emergency house repair. The amounts added up to thousands of dollars, money I'd given freely, happily even, because I thought we were a family that supported each other. Now I wondered if they'd been laughing about my generosity behind my back. Poor Brianna, always willing to bail everyone out. Good old reliable Brianna, who'll never question where the money goes or what it's really for. Stupid Brianna, who actually believes all those sob stories about tight budgets and unexpected expenses. The humiliation burned in my throat. I'd been played for years, and I'd been too naive and trusting to see it. They'd taken advantage of my love for them, my desire to be a good daughter and sister, and they'd used it to fund their lifestyle while keeping me on the outside looking in. I closed the banking app and set my phone aside. The anger was building now, pushing through the hurt and disappointment. They'd made their choice about what I meant to them. Now it was time for me to make mine about what they meant to me. The next week passed in a blur of work meetings and sleepless nights. I couldn't concentrate on my projects at Gravora Group, kept making small mistakes that I had to correct, and found myself snapping at colleagues who didn't deserve it. The knowledge of my family's betrayal sat like a weight in my chest, making everything else feel trivial and meaningless. I avoided social media entirely, not wanting to see any more photos or updates from their Miami trip. But I couldn't avoid the group chat notifications that kept popping up on my phone, Casual messages about flight delays and restaurant recommendations that made it clear the family vacation was ongoing. None of the messages were directed at me, of course. I was apparently still persona non grata in whatever new family dynamic they'd established. Friday afternoon, I was in a meeting with my boss, Tom Rodriguez, discussing timeline adjustments for a commercial renovation project when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father's name, and for a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity won out. "I need to take this," I told Tom, stepping out into the hallway. "Hey, Dad," I answered, my voice carefully neutral. "Brianna, how are you, sweetheart? How was your Thanksgiving?" The casual tone of his voice, as if nothing had happened, almost made me laugh. "It was quiet. How was yours?" "Oh, pretty low-key. Just watched some football and relaxed." The lie came so easily to him that I wondered how many other times he'd deceived me without me realizing it. "That sounds nice. Listen, honey, I'm calling because I could use a favor. We've got this opportunity for a family cruise coming up in January. One of those last-minute deals where you can get a really good price if you book fast. But we need to put down a deposit by Monday, and I'm a little short on cash right now." There it was. Not even a week after excluding me from their luxury Thanksgiving vacation, he was asking me for money to fund their next trip. The audacity was breathtaking. "How much?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. $2,100. I know it's a lot, but it's for the whole family, and the price they're offering is incredible. We'd save over $3,000 compared to booking it normally." "The whole family?" I repeated. "Well, me and your mom, Vanessa and Trevor, Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, the kids. It'll be like a reunion at sea." "And me?" There was a pause that lasted just a beat too long. "Well, of course you're invited too, sweetheart. I just figured you might not be able to get the time off work on such short notice." "Right," I said. "So you need $2,100 by Monday?" "If possible. I know it's asking a lot, but you've always been so good about helping family when we need it." The words hung in the air between us. I could picture him sitting in his living room in Phoenix, probably still tan from his Miami vacation, expecting me to eagerly agree to fund yet another family trip that I'd be conveniently excluded from. "Let me think about it," I said finally. Of course. Take your time. Well, not too much time. The deadline is Monday. But I know you'll do the right thing." After we hung up, I stood in the hallway for a long moment, watching my colleagues move past me, going about their normal Friday afternoon routines. They had no idea that my entire understanding of my place in the world had just shifted. The right thing. He wanted me to do the right thing. The question was, right for whom? That weekend, I made a decision that would change everything. I'd been thinking about my career lately, feeling restless and undervalued at Gravora Group, despite my years of loyal service. The company was solid but uninspiring, and I'd been considering making a move for months. The family situation had crystallized something for me. I was tired of being taken for granted, whether by my relatives or my employer. Saturday morning, I drove to a coffee shop I'd never been to before, in a part of Denver I rarely visited, and spent 3 hours researching something I'd only dreamed about, starting my own construction consulting firm. I'd been in the industry long enough to understand the gaps in the market, and I had enough connections to make it work. More importantly, I had savings, money I'd been careful with over the years instead of spending it on luxury vacations and designer clothes. By Sunday evening, I'd drafted a business plan, researched the legal requirements, and started reaching out to former colleagues who'd moved on to other companies. The response was immediately encouraging. 3 people I'd worked with in the past were interested in joining me as freelance consultants, and 2 potential clients had already expressed interest in our services. Monday morning, I called my father back. "Dad, about that cruise deposit you needed." "Oh, Brianna, I was hoping you'd call. Did you decide you can help us out?" "Actually, I've decided I can't support that." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "It's just a loan. We'll pay you back once we get home and everyone can contribute." No, Dad. I mean, I can't support frauds. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I saw Vanessa's live stream from Miami, I continued, my voice calm and steady. Your luxury Thanksgiving vacation that you somehow afforded despite being too broke to have a simple family dinner. So no, I won't be funding your cruise. Brianna, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You lied to me so you could exclude me from your family celebration, and now you want me to pay for your next one. The answer is no. Honey, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I also want you to know that I'm blocking your number after this call. Don't contact me again. You can't be serious. I hung up and immediately blocked his number, then did the same with my mother's and sister's numbers. Then I blocked them on all social media platforms. In the span of 5 minutes, I'd cut all communication ties with my family. The relief was immediate and surprising. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe properly. Tuesday morning, I walked into Tom Rodriguez's office and submitted my resignation. 2 weeks' notice, professional and courteous, but firm. This is unexpected, he said, looking genuinely surprised. Is there anything we can do to keep you? I'm starting my own firm, I told him. It's time. Within days, word had spread through the industry. A prominent business magazine, Colorado Construction Weekly, reached out for an interview about the growing trend of experienced professionals leaving established firms to start their own companies. They wanted to feature me in their next issue as an example of entrepreneurial success in the construction industry. I agreed to the interview, and the photographer came to my apartment the following week. The article would run in 3 weeks, they told me. Perfect timing. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. 3 weeks later, the magazine hit newsstands and digital platforms. The article was titled, Building Success, Local Professionals Strike Out on Their Own, and my photo was prominently featured on the cover. The piece detailed my decision to leave Gravora Group, my vision for my consulting firm, and the clients I'd already secured. More importantly, the article mentioned my educational background, my years of experience, and the innovative approaches I was bringing to construction project management. It painted a picture of someone who was successful, professional, and definitely not someone who needed to beg family members for handouts. I didn't have to wait long for the response. My phone, which had been blissfully quiet since I'd blocked my family's numbers, started ringing constantly. Unknown numbers from Phoenix area codes. I ignored them all, but I could see the voicemails piling up. After the 15th missed call in 2 days, I finally listened to one. Brianna, this is your mother. Please call me back. We need to talk about this situation. You're being childish and stubborn, and we're family. Family works things out. Childish and stubborn. That was rich, coming from the woman who'd lied to my face about being too poor for Thanksgiving while planning a luxury vacation behind my back. I deleted the voicemail and blocked that number too. But they were persistent. New numbers kept calling. Friends of the family reaching out on social media. Even my old high school acquaintances sending messages asking if I was okay because my family was worried about me. The magazine article had done exactly what I'd hoped. It had shown them that I wasn't the sad, lonely woman they'd imagined eating dinner by herself on Thanksgiving. I was a successful professional making power moves in my career, and I didn't need them anymore. 2 days after the magazine article went viral in our local business community, I got a call from my former colleague Jessica at Gravora Group. Girl, your family is calling here asking for your new contact information, she said, her voice amused. I told them we don't give out personal information about former employees, but they were persistent. Your sister called 3 times yesterday. Thank you for not giving it to them, I said. Of course not. But I have to ask, what's going on? They seemed pretty desperate. I gave Jessica a brief version of the Thanksgiving situation, and her reaction was immediate outrage. Are you kidding me? They excluded you from a family vacation and then asked you to pay for their next one? That's insane. It gets better, I told her. I heard through a mutual friend that their cruise fell through because they couldn't come up with the deposit money. Jessica laughed. Serves them right. You know, I always thought something was off about them when they'd call asking for you during work hours. They never seemed to respect that you had a professional life. That afternoon, I got a message from Trevor, Vanessa's boyfriend, on LinkedIn of all places. The message was lengthy and apologetic, explaining that he'd had no idea I hadn't been invited to Miami, that he'd assumed I'd chosen not to come. He said the family had been spinning the story to make it seem like I'd declined their invitation. I didn't respond, but the message confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd been lying to other people about the situation too, probably to avoid looking like the terrible people they actually were. The web of deception was unraveling, and they were scrambling to contain the damage. But it was too late. I was done with all of them, and they were finally starting to understand that I meant it. The aftermath of my decision played out exactly as I'd hoped, though even I was surprised by how completely their house of cards collapsed. The cruise never happened. Without my financial contribution, they couldn't make the deposit, and none of them could cover the full amount on their own. Uncle Pete and Aunt Gloria, who'd apparently planned their winter around the trip, were furious when they learned the real reason it fell through. Word spread quickly through our extended family and family friends about what had happened at Thanksgiving and how they'd tried to manipulate me afterward. The story took on a life of its own, growing more damaging with each retelling. Invitations to other family events and social gatherings dried up as people realized what kind of people they really were. Dad's reputation in his small social circle in Phoenix was permanently damaged, and Mom found herself explaining awkward encounters at the pharmacy where she worked. Vanessa's social media presence, which had been built on the image of a glamorous lifestyle funded by family support, suddenly looked hollow and artificial when people understood the truth behind it. 6 months later, as I stood in the sleek office space I'd rented for Fields Construction Consulting, watching my team prepare for our largest client presentation to date, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge. I'd chosen myself, my self-respect, my boundaries, my future, over the comfortable dysfunction of family loyalty. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who don't value you, even when they share your DNA. The sting of their betrayal had faded, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from building a life on your own terms.